I can't find a seconder usually when I propose this, but I don't care. I don't need a seconder. My own opinion is enough for me, and I claim the right to have it defended against any consensus, any majority, anywhere, any place, any time. And anyone who disagrees with this can pick a number, get online, and kiss my ass.
First things first, Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Conduct Rule 7.2e requires the following language in all attorney communications. No representation is made that the quality of legal services be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. My name's Harry Steele, backwoods Southern lawyer. My partner in crime, Paul Ripp, is here with me today from the Ripp Report. Sound off, Paul?
Yeah, looking forward to this. Is what, number 26?
It is.
And I don't have to read a disclaimer or anything that the Ripp Report says. The Ripp Report's responsible for and glad to make public.
And Raines is on the phone with us from the Houston desk. How you doing, Raines?
Oh, man, we're hanging in there, waiting for it all to fall apart.
All right, well, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to cut to a video. This came out last week, or I'm sorry, 2 days ago, and I think it gives a good snapshot of what's going on right now. So run it for us, Nick.
As we reported at the top tonight, Dr. Anthony Fauci of the NIH telling Congress just today that our system of testing for the virus across this country is failing. President Trump today said about testing, it's been going very smooth. And this image tonight, it was just days ago at Mar-a-Lago. The president with Brazilian officials there, and you can see the man on the right with the hat on. He's now tested positive for coronavirus. Obviously, a lot of questions about this. The White House tonight saying the president does not need to be tested. Here's our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl.
President Trump today insisted when it comes to coronavirus testing, everything is going according to plan.
Frankly, the testing has been going very smooth.
But today, even some of the president's fellow Republicans weren't buying it.
People should not say, if you want a test, you go get a test right now. That's coming. That's not here at this point.
Well, we're not the best equipped nation in terms of testing. That's absolutely obvious.
We all want on a date. We all want to be told by Friday there'll be 10 million tests available. The problem is they can't tell us that.
And there was that acknowledgement from Dr. Anthony Fauci, the government's leading expert on coronavirus.
The idea of anybody getting it easily, the way people in other countries are doing it, we're not set up for that. Do I think we should be? Yes, but we're not.
And the president also falsely said today that everybody coming to the United States from Europe is being tested.
Well, we have them very heavily tested. If an American's coming back or anybody's coming back, we're testing. We have a tremendous testing setup where people coming in have to be tested.
That claim is not true. ABC News has spoken to multiple people who returned to the United States today from Europe who were not tested. The CDC did not respond to questions about the president's comments. Today, the president is facing questions about whether he himself should be tested after he was photographed over the weekend in Mar-a-Lago with a Brazilian official who has tested positive.
Let's put it this way, I'm not concerned.
Here is another image of the president with the same man who tested positive. Still, White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham said in a statement, quote, both the president and vice president had almost no interactions with the individual who tested positive and do not require being tested at this time.
So let's get to John Karl, and I wanted to get back to that image, John, that you just reported on, because a lot of attention was paid to what we saw today. President Trump, it was just a couple of days ago, obviously standing right next to those officials from Brazil. The man on the far right there is now tested positive for coronavirus right next to the president. We know that several Republican senators who were at that event have self-quarantined, but you've learned that the president has not been tested himself?
And David, I actually checked just minutes ago, and still the president has not been tested, and White House officials say they do not believe he needs to be tested.
All right, John, thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel.
Video's down. It was a video from yesterday, Raines, and it was talked about the coronavirus and the federal response so far. So I've been doing a lot of research on this.
Trump's explanation.
Yeah, Trump, and we'll get to that in a minute. But one in particular that I thought was real good was Sam Harris, who is a PhD neuroscientist. His podcast, Making Sense, episode 190 and 191. He's got people from Johns Hopkins and smart people. they're saying that a vaccine is no better than 18 months away. That's if we crack. If we crack it and come up with some way to make a vaccine. And so here's something that I wanted to walk through, and something that I didn't realize, that we already have coronaviruses. They just don't cause COVID-19. They cause the common cold. So about 20% of the time you get a cold, you're actually catching some form of a coronavirus. It's an upper respiratory infection, as opposed to what COVID-19 does to your body, which is it attacks your lung tissue. And if you're an old person, that can cause a bacterial infection, which gives you pneumonia, which it sounds to me like it's the pneumonia that gets you. So watching Congress Wednesday, I'm sitting there watching it on, it was right at noon, and I remember I had court at 1, and so I was watching it on my phone, and all of a sudden the chairperson comes on and says, everyone's been recalled to the White House. And then, of course, that's when we had the big announcement from the president that he was suspending air travel from Europe. And it, at first, and I know you guys in the group text saw it, he said products from Europe, and that's when I sent the text to y'all about the Airbus parts. It's going to be hard to build a Airbus. What do they call that thing they built over there? A 306.
They didn't suspend it for the UK either. I thought that was,
right. So let's just talk about the state of things, and some of this is critical and some of it's not. 2018, Trump cut the epidemic response team budget by fairly significantly. Whether this one is the big one or not, this is a good dress rehearsal. So typically these avian viruses come from ducks, and the vector from ducks to humans is a pig. So it usually goes duck, pig, and everybody remembers swine flu, H1N1. So about every 15 years, we have something jumping from one species going into something that's very similar to us. Raines, you can get a pig heart. That's how similar we are to a pig. So pigs are typically the animal that allows the virus to then mutate and enter into humans. That we saw that with SARS and some other things. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about SARS and H1N1. SARS is extremely aggressive. If you get SARS, it's like 60% chance you're going to die, which could be a good thing about SARS, right? And we'll get into some technical terms here in a little while. So every 10 to 15 years, we have something like this come around. Maybe it's a big deal, maybe it's not. But the big deal about this one is it's new to our species. We have no idea how it's going to react. The information that the epidemiologists are dealing with, they're dealing with people in completely different situations. You're in China, where, hell, in Raines, nobody remembers MySpace, but I do remember your MySpace page during the Tiananmen Square incident. Well, hell, they'll run people over with tanks and stuff over there. Of course they can enforce a quarantine. So then the next place that we look with data is South Korea. For some reason, no one under 20 died in South Korea. Now, it could be that those kids had a very similar coronavirus in the form of a cold recently, and that gave them some cross immunity. The scary thing is nobody knows, and even the experts. So, if we had the Spanish flu of 1918, it shows us how fragile the economy is, and when we're dealing with and I'm going to be
pandemic
critical of the president here.
Pandemic.
He was in a meeting with, Colombia or Brazil? Okay, it was
Brazilian.
So the Brazilian ambassador's translator or somebody in the group has coronavirus. We know he does. And the president hasn't self-quarantined or self-isolated, or not that we know. There could be things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, but it looks to me like he's still doing his thing. So let's talk about...
There is no doubt in my mind, and I will stand on this mountaintop, and by God, prove me wrong in 2 weeks, but the president has it. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that he is infected with the virus. That's why he won't submit to the testing.
Okay, so let's talk
because
about.
You think the stock market tanked the other day. Wait, it turns out that the president's got coronavirus. It'll go to the bottom.
Okay, so let's talk about
way down.
And you guys know I'm a big nerd and I like watching documentaries and reading stuff nobody else is interested in. But you know, of all of the global killers that we can do nothing about, this is one that we should be ready for. And we shouldn't be making half of the world's IV bags in Puerto Rico. Did you know that we have an IV bag shortage, Paul, because the hurricane took out the plant that makes half of them on the planet?
And that was in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's just like, what if I told you that the United States military has no more access to these drugs than Paul Ripp?
Wouldn't surprise me.
I mean, but it's like, it would be like saying we're going to outsource all of our munitions production to pick a country.
Well, the thing that got me was that they said that they're claiming they sent out like a million plus tests, but these were to independent vendors, and the independent vendors have not told anybody yet where they're sending them, so nobody knows who's got them. I don't get it. I don't get it.
So,
Paul, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
You're going to love this. Guess how many tests the VA has administered in the last week?
No idea.
The entire VA.
Don't
40.
40. My God.
40 in the last week. The entire Veterans Administration has tested 40 people. You and me can't go to the VA and get a test right now.
We have something like 370,000 veterans in Alabama alone.
So Raines, let's talk about. So I think that the president's little speech the other day was more about calming the economy down, calming people's nerves about the economy. The world's nerves are shot on the economy. Let's focus on saving people's lives. Do you agree with that?
Okay. I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I don't agree with that.
Did you drop your phone down in the garbage disposal?
Sorry, I'm getting some water. I'm going to go ahead and go off, and I'm going to give you my 10-minute treatment on this. That message I sent in our group text the other day was only half kidding. We are past. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't be panicking. You shouldn't be stressing." You're right, because we're way past that point. The U.S. economy is going to completely collapse within 30 days.
Oh, no.
Because of this virus.
Nah, we've been through this before, man. Trust me.
Well, let me tell you something, Raines. I'm listening very, very hard because I've been in tourism for almost 30 years of my life, and I know tourism in Central America and different places, and the most common denominator of the virus is airplanes. I mean, that's just common sense.
So far.
So
far it is.
Well, so far, but I'm talking about, people
You're talking about intercontinental transmission, yes, the airplane.
Well, yeah, but let's say you're going to fly to Houston. Who the hell wants to get on a plane?
Not me.
So anyway, that's the tourism aspect, the economic aspect. I can see it, man. I can see it. That really is extremely scary.
All right, so I think we're switching from economy being paramount. We know there's going to be a 25% drop in the stock market, if not worse. But obviously, if you don't need your money in the next 2 years, don't touch it. Dummies. Don't go pulling all your
leave
stuff
your money
out
in the
stock
market.
It's too late.
Yeah, my 401k is down 40% from last year. But that don't mean I'm cashing it out. I'm just leaving it.
All right. So since we're over the hump that we're not worried about economy anymore, let's talk about health incentives to close schools. Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's reactive school closing. That's where you close a school when a child test positive. All right. By the time you do that, it doesn't help much. Epidemiological studies show that you're only reducing the total number by 24% and shortening the peak. So let's talk about proactive school closings, right? So back to the Spanish flu of 1918, they did a study afterwards. They looked at proactive versus reactive school closings. And one of the most telling statistics that I saw was St. Louis versus Pittsburgh. St. Louis closed its schools earlier and longer, and it had half the death rate of Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh just kept on humming, and they had a significantly higher rate of deaths. Okay, so here's what you do. You set a threshold, and you say if there is a coronavirus or COVID-19 case within 40 miles of this school, we're going to close it. You have to make arbitrary calls in the beginnings in these things, or okay, we know it's going to spread. We know it's going to get here, right? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Like there's hardly any way for us to imagine that this virus will not affect us. Okay, so here's what we want to do. Okay, so Northern Italy right now, back to my statistical analysis, Northern Italy right now is making decisions about which patients get a ventilator and which ones are going to die because everybody got sick at the same time and they're overwhelming the healthcare system. So if you look at the map that we had up last time, and of course we know it's bullcrap, Mississippi and Alabama were the only two states 3 days ago that had no confirmed cases. Well, of course we had no testing kits or anything else. But it's indicative of what we want to happen. We want this illness to be spread out over the next 8 months. And unless you're one of the first people that walks into the hospital with it, if you walk into the hospital 3 weeks after, a major surge in cases, there may not be anybody there to take care of you. That's the reality of it. Okay, so let's talk about this. We closed the schools. One of the paradoxical things about closing the school is one of the parents more than likely is going to have to stay at home. Well, it can't be the nurses because 38% of healthcare workers have a damn kid in the school system. Okay? So daddy's going to have to stay home, and mama making $14 an hour is going to have to go risk her life at the hospital. Here's the other thing. If you need an epidural steroid injection in your neck, back, or shoulder, go get it now. Don't wait 2 weeks from now when the hospitals are covered up with people and you need a non-medical medical care, non-emergency medical care.
Let me speak to this. I had a phone conversation yesterday with a very dear friend of mine. She's like a sister to me, and she's a superintendent in Mississippi.
How does she kiss?
And
you from Mississippi? Is she a good kisser?
Oh, well, I don't know. I guess.
You said she was like a sister to you. He's lost in thought. He's deep in thought.
God damn it. Anyway, I had a long conversation with her yesterday, and she talked about that because Mississippi is not shutting down schools right now. And she said the reason is 68% of the entire enrollment public schools in the state of Mississippi, students are on free lunch.
Right.
So that means that's breakfast and lunch at school, maybe the only meals they get in a day. Also, they're worried about the economic impact, like you said, of a parent having to stay home with a kid. And so they're trying to keep them open as long as possible just so kids get fed. That's a district superintendent telling me that's what the state is looking at, is that we've got to feed these kids. That's the only meal they get.
Yeah,
68%.
Yeah, I heard a similar report, exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
and that's a big deal. So, my school district that my son's enrolled in they were on spring break this week. Well, they added another week to it. But I was a volunteer at their school on Friday. They had field day, where the kids all go and do like all day PE.
Right.
And I was volunteering. I'm looking around, and these kids are sweating, runny noses. They're lining up, dogging on the water fountains. I said, if somebody at the school is testing, has got this coronavirus, they've all got it. So there's no point in trying to contain it. And I believe that nationwide. The containment part of this is long past.
Yeah, but
at this point, you've got to look at like my school. Humble ISD is the largest school district in the state. And they're looking at letting the kids go back to school simply because the economic impact of having mom and dad at home is too much. And I'm not going to downplay this. The economic collapse is coming. This virus has done wonders as far as poking holes in how fragile our economy is. Paul, you talked about tourism. This is going to be 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and the Spanish flu all wrapped up in one. The tourism and hospitality business is set for complete collapse within the next 2 weeks.
And it will.
That's a fact. I was compiling an essay on it for a professional group I'm in for bartenders. Like, look, guys, if you didn't have a plan for getting laid off for 30 days, you need to have one now because it's about to end.
Well, and everybody needs
stop going out.
Everybody needs to have an emergency plan. What if?
Yeah, well, people in the service industry usually don't because we don't live that way.
Yeah,
we're day-to-day people.
This is broad. This is going to be the Caribbean, Central and South America, Asia, Australia, everyone. Look what's happening in Italy. They virtually have Italy shut down. Well, they do have Italy shut down parts of it.
All right, so I want to talk mortality rates again. South Korea, they had a test group of 5,000. China, their test group was 44,000, and they're claiming that that mortality rate was 2%, or I'm sorry, 0.2%.
No,
2%. Okay, yeah, 2%. So, middle-aged people 1 to 2%, over 80, 20%. That's a lot of people. So let's talk about risk factors. If you're a smoker, if you're over, let's just say me and you, Raines, I'm overweight, I might as well be 80. You smoke, you might as well be 80.
Yeah.
So
I'm not worried about getting this disease and dying from it. I'm really not. We went to a birthday party last night, and I told my wife, this is it. We're not going anywhere else after this.
Okay.
We're not going to any more gatherings. We're not going out. We're just going to wait, because we can do that. I'm fine with just sitting in my garage.
So Raines, let me ask you this. What do you think 2% of the population of a typical elementary school would be? Let's say it's bad. Let's say that American kids don't have an immunity to it like the South Koreans.
Let me give you a better statistic, one that's equally horrifying but less subjective. The head of the CDC said they're looking at 70 million infections in the United States before it's all over with. 2% of 70 million is 1.4 million. That's 1.4 million deaths.
Okay, that's the
from
top
this virus
end.
alone.
That's the top end. But let's say we go my route and we stretch it out, and I got on a fishing shirt and shorts sitting here right now. It's 72 degrees in Daphne, Alabama. Okay, according to the president, who really understands this, when the weather heats up, it's all over with. I don't know about
the president's full of shit. He's absolutely lost his damn mind. The U.S. government is doing what the U.S. government always does and is completely failing at what they're trying to do.
Well, I don't know if they're completely failing, but they're 3 weeks behind in what they need to be doing.
No, they're completely failing.
Well, I'm going to tell you this, and people might not be happy with it, but 48 hours ago, that president was going to get reelected in a landslide. Now it ain't looking so damn hot.
Well, I don't care. Listen, I want him to do well in this situation. I want him to be John F. Kennedy during the damn Cuban Missile Crisis.
Then he needs
on the spot.
Then
he needs to start listening.
It's not going to happen.
He needs to listen to science if that's what you want.
All right, so let me give you the optimistic numbers range. My numbers that I think are much more probable, given the fact that even when the government's doing jack squat, the NBA makes the decision to end their season. It's the private sector that's making the hard calls for the benefit of the people, okay? So most optimistic, 1 million people infected, 35,000 dead. Most optimistic, right? And this is coming from, let's see, was it Harvard? 20 to 60% get infected in the next 6 months. Fatality rates of 0.5% means 300,000 people are going to die. In Italy, it has 18 million people. The hospitals are overwhelmed. And this is not the regular old flu. I talked about how COVID-19, the resulting condition, COVID-19, is caused by coronavirus, and it's not the flu. Just imagine, okay, think about the last time you had the flu. You went to the urgent care or you went to the hospital. There were plenty of people to take care of your whatever. What are you going to do if you get the regular old flu that kills thousands of people a year? 80,000 people died in 2019.
Right.
From the flu. Regular
I'm telling you,
flu.
I'm telling you, this has very little to do with the mortality rate of this virus. This virus has punched holes in the fragile U.S. economy and is going to completely collapse it. And I stand by that. It is going to overwhelm the healthcare system in this country. There will be riots when people start getting turned away at hospitals in 2 weeks.
Well, the other thing, too, is, the most dangerous thing we do is drive our automobiles. That's like, 50,000 people a year?
35,000.
35,000.
35,000 people a year die in traffic fatalities, and we spend millions of dollars on things like impact attenuators on interstates and ribbon rails and trying to keep people from running off the road and flipping their car. But we don't have a plan for something that everybody knew was coming and comes every 15 years. So we need to be vigilant.
The fact that we don't have a plan, we are the first world. We are one of the top societies on this planet. And we don't have a plan to deal with this. We don't have a good plan to deal with this. It is going to tank the economy. It is going to overwhelm the U.S. healthcare system completely and totally. I'm telling you right now, there are already first responders that are sick, that are working sick because they can't not work.
And they're going to have to work sick.
And they're going to have to keep going to work. My biggest thing right now, the thing I'm angry about, is people trying to marginalize this with any kind of statistic at all. But the time to panic is gone. You might as well just kick back and watch it burn. This is going down. It's going down bad.
I agree that we're going to have, it's going to stress our healthcare system. And if people are smart, they will self-isolate. They will not shake hands. They will not touch their face. They will use their elbow to open doors and push elevator buttons.
You got to have the testing. And on thousands of bases, not hundreds. I mean, listen to what Rain said. 40 in the entire VA. We got 370,000 veterans in Alabama. I mean, look at the millions, and we've got, 1,200 tests out?
Yeah, and if you're sick, call your doctor. Tell him what your symptoms are. They may not want you coming to the emergency room at North Baldwin Infirmary if they think you have coronavirus. It would make sense to me that we would designate a hospital in Baldwin County to receive those patients and move. I mean, and when if it turns out we got 5,000 people with coronavirus and everybody over 80 needs a ventilator, hey, Paul, do you think the giant brains at the Alabama Department of Health even know how many ventilators there are in the state of Alabama?
Absolutely not.
I'll guarantee you they don't know. I guarantee you there's not. And so we just spent, the Alabama legislature just passed this bill going to create some kind of early warning system, like where they can text everybody in the state of Alabama or whatever. Just imagine if they'd have spent that time inventory and respirators and seeing how, making sure that the people were safe from a pathogen that we knew that we had.
Let me give you an idea. Let me give you an idea. In Jackson County, Mississippi, and it's probably indicative of the counties in lower Alabama as well. In Jackson County, Mississippi, there are 188 ventilator-equipped beds for healthcare, according to the Public Health Service. 188. Now, anybody that catches this virus that's going through chemo is going to get one. Anybody catches this virus that's over 80 is going to get one. Kids going to get one. There's 188 in the entire county. In Houston, we are the medical capital of the South, right?
Right.
We have less than 6,000 beds. There are 5 million people in the city, and there are less than 5,000 beds equipped with ventilators, and we are the medical capital of the South. you're not. It's going to completely overwhelm our public health service. Absolutely and completely.
Look how many venues have been canceled.
All right, so I got
Look at the convention business is done for. That's what I'm saying. The service industry is collapsing right now. Delta just laid off 40% of their staff in a nice PR type way.
I get it, man, but you're still harping on the economy. I said the economy's over with. We need to focus on what people can do to keep themselves safe. So let's stop beating the shit out of the economy, because the economy's over with.
If you want to keep yourself safe, you got to stay home. And I think you're giving people, when you say, well, smart people do this, you're giving people way too much credit, because people aren't smart as a whole. They're just not.
And
they're still
easy to panic.
Going to be people that go, yeah, it's stay home. Just isolate yourself. Stay home.
So the typical reproductive rate for every person that gets this disease, they will infect 3.8 people. That's the stat.
Yeah, do the algebra on that and figure out what the infection rate is.
So the flatter that we can, so if everybody's going to get it and everybody gets it at one time, it stresses the system. If it's gradual and by the end of the summer it tapers off and we don't have to worry about it till next year, and that's another thing. Get ready for COVID-19, because it's going to be just like the flu, and we're going to see it again next year, and we're going to have to come up with some kind of vaccine.
The solution is testing. The solution is testing. That's the solution. That's what happened in North Korea. That's what happened in China. And Italy is duplicating their systems. And that's what we are not prepared to do. It's testing. You don't know if it's around you or not. And the only way you can suppress it is to test it, find the core groups, and then suppress the core groups from getting out.
So there's some vocabulary words that I'm going to be giving you at the end of the podcast. I don't want to bore you with them now, but community spread, mortality rates, latent period, incubation period, I'll run through all those. So let's talk about local closings, Paul. What all's going on around here? Auburn University, of course. Let me pull out got my Auburn Superman shirt on under here. They were one of the first to go to tell students not to come to class. Everything's going to be online. I believe the University of South Alabama. Is that right? They're going to online classes.
And the biggie on the Eastern Shore, of course, is the Eastern Shore Arts and Crafts Center. Festival each year. And I know that they really thought long and hard about that. The sponsors, and I think on Fairhope, the sponsors and Councilman Brown were pushing to go ahead and go with the Arts and Crafts Festival, but the mayor was very reluctant, and finally the council agreed. And one of the things that I don't think some of the council were thinking about, especially Mr. Brown, I don't know what he was thinking about jeopardizing health like that, though, is that these big festivals like this, the vendors are from all over the United States. And they go from one venue to another. So, if it was just some local people and a local festival, that'd be one thing. But you got these people coming from out of town and sometimes out of country. So I think it was very, very prudent on the mayor's part and city council to just take the hit on it and cancel it. Too high risk.
So what about the Gulf Shores Drug Fest, Hangout Fest? 40,000 people from all across the country are coming here the weekend of May 13th through the 15th.
It's about 6 weeks out, so they'll probably have to wait another 2 or 3 weeks to see what happens. I think the next week is gonna be very telling for us.
Yes, absolutely. Next week is going to be the bellwether, because that'll end the 5-day incubation period, for asymptomatic transfer, and our cases are going to leave. This is exponential algebra at this point.
Correct.
It's the simple math tells us that we're, next week is going to be compound exponentially, and the week after that as well. And then maybe containment will start taking effect to stop further spread.
Right.
But 2 weeks of no economy, that's the end.
Really, and you try to plug that hole by coming up with some incentive or plan or payment plan. That's where you getting that money from, You're talking billions and billions.
that's one of my favorite things. That, if there's any bright side to any of this, it's been my absolute just laughing at all the hardcore Republicans around here who are going, well, who's going to pay our payroll taxes and who's going to help out small businesses? Are they going to bail us out? They're going to do that. I'm like, hey, that's what you call socialism, right?
Well, so Raines, I want to point you to two more resources. Have you ever listened to the Ringer podcast? It's a sports podcast out of L.A. They had Malcolm Gladwell. He's a celebrity doctor. He was on there yesterday. Very good. He's saying 40 to 70% of the population will be infected in the next 12 to 18 months. Also, the Rogan podcast, day before yesterday, Joe Rogan 1439, Michael Ostrom is an infectious disease expert. I think he's in a think tank at the University of Michigan Medical School, but don't hold me to that. Just two more places you can go look. Don't take my word for it. So basketball, baseball, rock concerts, pretty much everything is canceled, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So any idea, has anybody heard anything from the governor of the state of Alabama about this since President Trump's official notice? Yeah, recently. So we also got a call right before we started saying that there's been a case reported in Montgomery, Alabama, and in Montgomery County, Alabama. So Alabama is no longer coronavirus free. And that just came to us a few minutes ago. All right, I want to switch gears.
Hey, real quick, this is a dumb question, and I should know because I was born there, but is Montgomery the county seat of Montgomery County?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't know that was Montgomery County. I had forgotten what county that was.
Yeah, Donnie's their county. I know their county administrator pretty well up there. All right, so while this goes on, the world will continue to spin. And right now, we want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the Alabama legislature, okay? These are some bills that we've talked to you about before. We got some correction from one of our listeners. We quoted House Bill 208. It's actually House Bill 203 related to the Barnwell Historic Preservation District. But we actually got that from a newspaper article.
Right, right.
So
they quoted it wrong.
That's on Guy Busby.
Right. And, the thing that gets me is we get this legislation. It comes in by our legislative delegation, and they're going up there and proposing this legislation, and none of the 14 municipalities had any idea that they were going to propose anything before they did it. And so then you have the municipalities trying to correct.
Well, when's the last time you saw the tax man at a city council meeting?
Yeah,
I've never seen him at one, nor any of the other elections. Well, you might see McMillan at a county commission meeting, but
I mean we got this one, the 203 now. That's really going to impact the Fairhope area, and on March 12th city council meeting, they passed a resolution number 15 that city council opposes the current form of HB 203 and opposes the introduction of any further bills to create landmark districts within Baldwin County until the aforementioned issues in this resolution are agreed upon and worked out to a mutual satisfaction of all affected parties, and requests that the resolution be provided to each member of the Baldwin County legislative delegation and to other interested members of the Alabama legislature. And most importantly is the mayor has stated, Mayor Wilson in Fairhope, that nobody really has a problem with the Barnwell creating a landmark district. It's just what is making up the district. The unincorporated area south of our incorporated limits, Wilson said, it's 44 square miles. It includes other areas that have existed long before Barnwell, including parts of Point Clear, Clay City, Battles Wharf, Houstonville, Tatumville, Marlow, and Fish River. And as I understand it, 12 of the 14 municipalities have such resolutions trying to kill the bill that they introduced and never told anybody before they introduced. So thank you, Mr. Faust, for that.
All right, Rain. So the interesting thing about this is some of the most valuable real estate in the United States is southeast of, or due south of Fairhope, and south is kind of east of their corporate limits and south. 44 square miles have been put in of property have been put into this district, and basically all it does is it says local zoning can't be enforced here, nor can we ever be annexed. So paradoxically, what's going to happen is Baldwin County Sewer Service is going to go in there and provide utilities, and it's going to be Katie bar the door on development. These people think that they're fending off development. Development's coming. The property's too valuable. The question is do you want the city to have some kind of organized process for this chaos, or do you just want things springing from the ground like it's Deadwood, South Dakota?
Well, then you have Senate Bill 142 by the taxman, Mr. Elliott. Of course, nobody knew this was coming up either, and that would abolish extraterritorial jurisdictions for any city or town in Alabama and would restrict police and planning authority to within the municipal limits. So you look at the landmark thing, and then what Elliott's wanting to do, you're talking about changing the entire structure of Baldwin County with these type of things.
And just so you know, the taxman's bill was read into the Senate record on February 6th and sent to committee.
Right.
So it's in the local governmental affairs committee of the Senate.
So I think really what they should do is table the 203 and also come up with a more defined jurisdiction if they want to do that. I don't think that they can just encompass what they want. But now one thing that did go through was the Medical Marijuana Bill, SB 165. That was at a 21-10 vote.
21-10 approval by the Senate, so now it goes to the House.
Right. And,
progress.
And understand that Che Garrigan, the medical cannabis lobbyist, had quite a good bit to do with this passing, attended all the meetings and pushed it through. Also is representing the hemp industry, which is going to come into play. In fact, just throw a little human interest in here in between. You can now, in our favorite magazine, Lagniappe by Allison Shepard, Orange Beach Restaurant adds hemp to the menu. So if you want to try nachos a different way, try the Anchor Bar and Grill in Orange Beach. And you can have marijuana on top of your slow smoked pork. So try that.
Sans the THC.
But let's hope that this goes to the House. This is non-smokable medical marijuana. Also, Che Garrigan's leading an effort to form a medical marijuana for veterans group, which I found it very hard to believe that there wasn't one, but there isn't. So let's hope that that bill goes through the House.
Paul, don't you worry. There's plenty of marijuana groups for veterans. They just don't call it medical marijuana right now.
Correct. Yeah, they got a lot of.
I am a proud member of a marijuana group for veterans. Believe me.
Let's talk about the Senate race. Does that suit y'all?
Oh yeah. That's getting to look even better.
So supposedly, Tuberville lives in Florida, according to the Sessions ads, and of course Tuberville's running Trump's regret interview with. Have you seen that 60 Minutes interview where they say, Mr. President, do you have any regrets? And he, without even thinking, he goes, appointing Jeff Sessions.
Yeah. He's really laid on Sessions. I'm telling you, boy, he's going to take that all the way down, and Tuberville looks like, that he's going to win over Jeff Sessions, which I would have never believed. And he lives in Santa Rosa Beach, as I understand it, so he's only moved back to qualify for the race. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I do want to
work for Hillary Clinton.
Well, I want to go. I want to go on the record that the way I see it is that if Tuberville beats Sessions, that gives Doug Jones a little bit of an edge on beating Tuberville, because there'll be a lot of people that see a weakness there and don't want to elect a football coach. So we'll see how that turns out.
Let's talk about the first congressional, Alabama first congressional race.
Yeah, I'm not endorsing anybody yet on the Senate thing, and normally I don't endorse anybody, but the the first congressional district is really heating up with a lot of false ads this morning. I saw on the WKRG, I think it was Jon Stewart that was analyzing two different ads. One was from Mr. Carl, the other one's from Mr. Hightower. And they were shooting holes in both of them, not really endorsing either one, but saying both were guilty, so to speak, of having very negative ads. Now, the first congressional district includes Escambia, Monroe, Baldwin, and Mobile County, and part of Clark County. So we started off with 5 candidates. The Ripp report and suggested that you vote for anyone other than the Catalyst candidate. The Catalyst candidate is Hightower, and now we have 2 candidates left, and that's Mr. Hightower and Mr. Jerry Carl. So I can tell you that there are a lot of similarities between the 2 candidates, but the one thing that is different is that Mr. Hightower is Catalyst. And anybody that knows Catalyst knows that this is a good old boy group founded and homegrown here in Baldwin County. And many of the people that they have elected or been appointed to an office, as many as 7, I can just recite right off the top of my head, have been involved with personal gain within their appointed or elected positions. So Catalyst is something that Mobile...
It's a coincidence.
Yeah,
total coincidence.
The last thing we need to do is send a Catalyst candidate to the swamp. I mean, that's just about as ridiculous as you can get. So I hope people are paying attention, and if they say, what's the difference between the 2? Jerry Carl is not Catalyst, and Hightower is. And the other thing I like about Mr. Carl was, of course, I'm a little bit prejudiced here, was that his son was in the Marine Corps, and that he realizes that there's quite a bit to be done for veterans, not only on health care, but compensation and claims. So Jerry Carl all the way. We don't need Catalyst. Pay attention, people. Don't be voting for somebody because someone else told you that, that's who you should vote for, and you don't know what Catalyst is. Educate yourself on that.
All right, so I want to talk about an ongoing appeal. Do you have that one ready, Paul? Fight for Your Rights. Condo owner seeks to uphold judicial remedies for alleged fraud by Gabriel Tynes.
Right, that's Lagniappe.
All right, so this is a Lagniappe article, and I'm going to boil it down for you in 10 seconds. When you buy a condo pre-construction, you talk to the realtor, you talk to the developer, they have no idea how much money they're going to... Now, they know how many pre-sales they need to make because you're basically the bank for the developer when you pre-buy. So they file a declarations page when they think they know what they're going to build, and they say how many units it is and and put restrictions in there about use. I mean, a lot of times it's residential only, or maybe that can be an ancillary use for a rental office or something like that. What's going on here is Brett Robinson, who built Phoenix on the Bay number 2, which is over on Terry's Cove. Did you ever go to Gulf Gate in your day? Gulf Gate Lodge, or did you miss that?
I think I might have missed it.
Woo. Well, anyway, it's right next to the Gulf Gate for any of you locals. So anyhow, when they filed their initial declarations, they said we're going to have X number of units, and that was it. And there were restrictions and things like that. So then after they built it, they filed another declarations page and put all this, all this self-dealing stuff in there. Like they added 4 commercial units that these people didn't even know were in the declarations. They didn't realize that they had to use the company that built the condo to rent all of their units for the next 20 years. I mean, there were just a lot of things that, and at any point in time, I guess the developer could go back and amend those declarations. I don't know of anything that stops them from doing that 2 or 3 or 4 declarations. So what's happened here is Judge Stankoski came in and he says, no, you can't do this. And these 4 units, I'm carving them up and I'm giving them equally to the 104 owners of the individual units. And, of course, the developers are just screaming bloody murder. There are all these amicus briefs from the Association of Realtors. I could go on and on about it, but that's the bottom line. And I actually agree with Judge Stankoski on this one. I don't think they ought to be able to bait and switch people. If you're not sure what you're going to build, don't file your declarations page yet. That's the simple answer. Do your due diligence. Quit being sloppy. They went back through some of these things, like at the Carib Resort that Wireman did. The initial declarations in 2002 said that they would have X number of units, and they filed another one in 2005 that says there's 192. It went from 192 to 203. Pretty significant. Might be a whole nother level on the building. Who knows? But when these people give a developer $350,000 for a product that's not built yet, I think they need some guarantees from the law that says this is what they're going to get. And Brett Robinson or any other developers, they shouldn't be able to come back after the project's completed and change the terms of the declarations of the condo association. I agree with Judge Stankoski on this. I hope that, and I'm wondering if this Ms. Montgomery, who is the head of it says she worked at a title company. I'm wondering if she worked for the Owens down at Gulf Shores Title. I think I might know who she is.
I don't know, but I agree with you on this one. Kind of reminds me of the Seinfeld thing about condos. They call it condoism. So
there's condoism, all right.
There's one kind of problem after another.
Yes, sir. All right, so I want to get to a follow-up. Of course, we really haven't talked about this case very much. Raines, you'll remember our second podcast was Friday the 13th of September. That resulted in my security pass being revoked to the damn courthouse for 100 days, or it was more than 90 days, I can promise you that. So this article, Paul, I'm going to let Paul go through it with you, and I'm going to comment. It's called Officer Involved, and it's relating. I'm gonna let Paul.
This is the latest Lagniappe, and again, I encourage people to get the Lagniappe because you're not getting this anywhere else. This is the only place you can be reading this and finding out what's going on in your county. Officer Involved lawsuit filed against Baldwin County deputies over the deadly 2018 eviction. This is by Gabriel Times. I remember this.
Hold on. So, Raines, they go to evict a guy, and just give me a bullet count. How many times they shoot the guy? Or how many bullets were fired?
There were 114 rounds shot.
Okay, so before you hear anything else, your hair should be standing up on the back of your neck. Is it?
114 rounds.
114 rounds.
Right. Oh, Raines, wait till you hear this one. This one, I mean, this one here is something else.
All
now,
right.
Go ahead.
Give us the facts.
All right. Well, this is on this one, I got to kind of read a good bit of it to give you the thing. But the daughter of the man who was killed at Baldwin County law enforcement officers during the process of an eviction order in 2018 has filed a federal lawsuit alleging constitutional violations, negligence, excessive force, deliberate indifference to her father's safety and medical needs, among other counts.
Get your ass a cop cam.
Naming as defendants is Huey, Haas, Mack. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is number 4 of incidents. You know, if you remember, we had the individual, young man that supposedly committed suicide by strangling himself with the seatbelt. That's the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life. Then we have the incident where the deputy in an unmarked car is chasing him down I-10 the wrong way, and 3 people are burned to death and 5 are killed. That has now resulted in a lawsuit. Then we have the long gun incident where the man ran off the road and was killed holding a fanny pack. And all of these would be...
potentially someone who was dazed and injured, walking wounded. Nobody knows because we can't see the body cam footage.
Which Lagniappe is trying to get the whole time, and they're throwing up every type of roadblock there is. And now we go back to the...
And I need to say this one thing, Paul, and I hate to interrupt you in the middle of something like I really don't. So, and I don't know his name. There's a Republican House member from Satsuma, and he just proposed a bill that states, it's real short and sweet. It says body cam footage is not a public record. Now, how in the hell can that be true?
Right. Well, they don't want to use drones to look at environmental damage either, so nothing surprises me.
All right, keep going with this story.
Well, this lawsuit is filed by Amy Yates, Robert's daughter and personal representative of the estate. And about 1:30 p.m. on March 5th, the landlord and his son, Don and Tim DeBorge, stood on Yates' stoop alongside deputies Robert Corina and Greg Smith before the property owners broke Yates' door down with a sledgehammer. At that point, one deputy entered announcing this is a sheriff's office while the other walked around to secure the back of the trailer. It was then, the complainant claims, Yates hid in his bathroom, grabbed a gun, and fired a warning shot. The only warning shot the only shot that he shot during the entire time of this incident, which prompted both deputies to take cover behind a truck in the yard and fire weapons into Yates' home while calling for backup. Here's where it gets good. When the SWAT team arrived, they came with their military-style vehicles, incendiary grenades, and weaponry, and cleared the local area of all residents surrounding Yates' home. Allegedly, one of the SWAT team members was Deputy Justin Corina, the son of Robert Corina, suggesting the plaintiff had some evidence subsequently provided by investigators. The complaint claims Robert Corina warned his son about getting involved due to the potential conflict of interest, but the younger deputy said he was going to go in and kill this effer if I have to. For the next 5 hours, the complaint says the SWAT team tore the windows and walls apart, armed with a Bearcat vehicle, and used tear gas, concussion grenades, and/or flashbangs on Yates' home. Yates has a history of mental illness, and his family was never called to try to negotiate this. In fact, Amy Yates, when she learned of the situation, called, and her phone call was intercepted by the police, and she said, well, let me talk with him, but she was never talked to. And by this time, the defendants were dead set on killing Yates. And at about 6:30 p.m., the decision was made to breach the Yates residence with all of the SWAT team's firepower. Although the situation was not that bad, nor was there an emergency, nor had Yates threatened anyone's life since firing the first warning shot. Based on bullet holes in the home and shell casings, over 114 rounds were shot. Justin Corina allegedly fired a minimum of 30 rounds from his AR-15 into the house.
That would be a clip.
Yeah, they spread
an entire magazine.
They spread more fire all around the inside of the home, leaving Yates critically wounded and in need of medical attention. At least 8 deputies fired weapons, according to the complaint, and Yates was killed. But the complaint said the headshot did not kill him. He had 3 other wounds. In the press conference the day after Yates' death, Lieutenant Judd Beatty of the Daphne Police Department, member of the Major Crime Unit, said there was 2 incidental units, one with the Sheriff's Department and one when they breached it with the SWAT team. I wanted to read you something here. Was I thought was particularly egregious, and it was that after the situation, well, what they did was after this gentleman was dead, they didn't call for medical transport until early the next morning. On the following day,
they had to count all the damn bullet holes and figure out whose weapon killed him.
But
probably.
they called for medical transport until the next morning. The following day, Amy Yates claims the landlord, DeBorg, gave her, this is after her father is killed now, gave her 24 hours to remove her father's belongings before he was going to scrap the now battered and bullet-holed trailer. My God. My God. I mean, come on, people. This is 4 cases in a row with the sheriff's department. This is not one thing. I mean, you know what I think we should do is, I think the Ripp report is going to contact Lagniappe and pay for a free subscription to be delivered to the FBI, because somebody's got to be reading this. It needs to step in and do something. 4 cases.
That man was, I'll say it, and it'll be said on this podcast, that man was murdered.
Absolutely.
By those police.
Absolutely. 300 rounds for a simple eviction.
All right, so let's talk about this.
I mean, 114, sorry.
No de-escalation at all.
None.
It was balls to the wall from the get-go.
pressure.
That man was murdered.
Didn't call the family.
He was not killed by police. He was murdered by police.
Didn't call the family, nobody to try to negotiate him out.
So, Range, you remember when those Chechen terrorists took over that damn, I believe it was in Russia, in Moscow.
Oh, yeah.
In that big
no, it
theater?
wasn't. It was in Odessa. It was in the Ukraine.
Okay, right. It was in the Ukraine. And do you remember they weaponized something like halothane? They knocked everybody out with gas.
Yep.
Why don't we have some kind of less lethal method? Of course, they screwed up the antidote.
Because they didn't set up. They wouldn't have. Less than lethal wouldn't have had anything to do with what happened to that man. That man, they set out to murder that man, and they did it. That's all I'm going to say about it. There ain't no less than lethal. There ain't no nothing. Those police murdered that man. There ain't no bean bags or methylene gas or anything else. They murdered him. They set out to murder him, and the FBI and the Justice Department should be involved, and every one of them officers should get the chair. I swear to God.
The Justice Department should be all over it. This is like 3 out of 4 incidents are involved in federal lawsuits already, and the one with the kid strangling himself with a seatbelt, man, that's got to be.
That's what, and just that compounded with a lot of other things going on around here is the reason that we're sitting here at this table today with the green screen and all this equipment and everything.
Correct.
Is because when I was involved in this case with the seatbelt, people had a hard time believing me when I told them the story, and then I would say, "Well, hell, just read the deposition."
What podcast was that?
That was number 2. That was the last Friday the 13th that we.
Friday the 13th.
Anybody that cares to hear all about that, go back and listen to number 2. And this is the cover for it behind us. If you're scrolling through YouTube looking for the thumbnail for the video. Where do you go from there, Paul?
Well, a little bit of extra Fairhope news. One, and
Fairhope Arts and Crafts Fair next week.
You can buy a rubber band gun from your grandkids so they can protect themselves from the sheriff's department.
Fairhope's Art and Crafts is canceled, and also what else did not work out was the Greeno Road overlay again in the Lagniappe putting the no in Greeno. Fairhope Planning Commission denies the controversial zoning amendment, and
that was a form-based code based on how close you were to a major intersection, and it was very complicated. I think it was a good plan. I think it was a little too complicated for the
evidently it was, and it started out as a 44-page document. It was initially proposed in 2018. Now, the Greeno Road corridor, I know from my own experience, I have spent 14 years, this thing has come up again and again and again. And the only thing that I say is that every property right owner has a right to do and say what they want to, but is the protection of the road, that it's not junked up and everything else. And I think that was the original intent. And that 44-page document was honed down after many public meetings and much public participation. It was honed down to 11 pages, but yet one of the commissioners, Art Dias, was not able to secure a second on his motion to approve the corridor. City Councilman Kevin Boone broke his silence on the matter afterwards to make a motion to deny the measure, one that was seconded by Commissioner Clarice Hall Black. Ultimately, denial and approval by a 4-2, with Turner and Dias dissenting. Glad to see that. I think that's what they should have done. Although it was denied by the commission, it will still be presented to the Fairhope City Council for consideration, and just absolutely no telling what the City Council of Fairhope will do. So we'll have to wait till it gets there. But I think that is a moot issue until it comes up again, maybe in the next administration. But I still say that I hate to see things that there's no resolution. In other words, it's my way or the highway. You can't come up with any other solution. I think that's a bad policy. I think you should have to come up with some solution, compromise somewhere.
All right, Paul, I hope you wet your whistle, because you got the next one, too. Damn the Torpedoes, which is the Rob Holbert's editorial that he does every week.
Correct, and Let the Sun Shine In, and this is a lot about for the past several months, Lagniappe has been suing for the body cam footage. Well, that's the motorist that we were telling you about with the fanny pack, Jonathan
the
Victor.
Now, the interesting thing about the fanny pack wasn't shot with a sidearm. He was shot with a long gun.
Correct.
Okay.
And you just wonder how it transpired that the man runs off the road. He appears to be in some type of trouble or something. They stop to help him, and then all of a sudden it ends up with him being shot and killed. So
because he's got something in his hand,
correct,
and won't comply with their orders.
And now we have the body
allegedly
cam. We have body cam footage, but they don't want to release it. And yet at the same time, we have people arguing about open records things and ways that they can keep these tapes out of our hands. And in Baldwin County, some judges have taken to, this is Mr. Holbert talking, in Baldwin County, some judges have taken to stealing court records for no other reason than one of the litigants doesn't want people to see them. And the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency last week told us their investigation into the deadly accident on I-10 last year that culminated in the Baldwin County Sheriff's deputy chasing the headlong car traffic in interstate traffic is not public record. Ward and Representative Chip Brown are even pushing a bill that would severely restrict where drones can fly, and that's looking for pollution violations. Maybe over the next week or two at home to avoid. Let's see. No, that's another part of it.
Hey, dude, I want to back you up for a second.
Yeah.
So remember how we talked last time, and you said, all the city clerks are against it, and they killed the damn bill, blah, blah, blah. Remember all that?
Right.
Guess what happened Wednesday?
What?
Cam Ward said, I'm going to filibuster to the damn Senate if y'all don't put my bill back on the floor.
Okay, well,
so the open records law is not dead. He's threatening a filibuster, and I think he might get it. I think that I got a feeling they're going to cave.
Well, the thing that surprises, well, it doesn't surprise me, but, transparency, accountability, and ethics, those are the three words every politician will say every time right before the election. And then once they're in, they want to restrict public records. They want to do this or that. They don't want no transparency, no accountability. And, like I mentioned a while ago, we've got a good old boy group here in Baldwin County called Catalyst, and their motivation is to use their office for personal gain. And nobody says anything. This stuff is being printed in the paper.
Some of them.
Well, now we're talking about Catalyst, most all of them.
Some of them.
Correct.
along those same lines, and just if anybody keeps up with things like Paul and I do, if you go back and look, there are several developers in Baldwin County who have gone to the trouble to go back and close, I don't know, what got the straw man caught? He had 100 LLCs
right.
that were all, the registered agent's address was
Summerdale.
Yeah, his real boss's home address.
Right.
So anyway, a lot of those LLCs, they've gone in and closed them all. Those, and then there's a construction company that the judge down in Fairhope owns. I noticed they've closed out a lot of their LLCs.
Well, yeah,
also.
but that was one of our complaints. The Catalyst is run by Scott Boone. His father is Kevin Boone, who's on the city council of Fairhope, and he's got more LLCs than freckles on a redhead. And, part of every type of subdivision that there is.
That was a low damn blow. Poor old Rains up here to slap you. Houston.
Damn.
But I mean, it's true. And then we go back a little bit later and we start researching their LLCs, and all of a sudden we see they dropped them. They dropped these and dropped this and everything to start covering their tracks. But that's the type of thing that I'm talking about with a good old boy and Catalyst, and they got a little piece of the action between all of them that they're passing around. A little bit something on a lighter note, and I know
we gotta just in. Our tech is a Coastal student, and he just got a text message saying that all classes at Coastal have been moved online.
Yep.
So,
and our tech predicted that before the show. So that's pretty good. But something on a little bit lighter note, dear to all of our hearts here in South Alabama, is Gulf Shore Zoo, and they finally are moving into their new location. I encourage everybody to take part in it. Take your kids down. They have worked very, very hard. They went through hurricanes and floods and every other possible thing you could think of. But they persevered, and now they're moving into a brand new location. So we wish them the best, and hope everybody will take their kids or drop by and see it.
Fantastic.
All right.
I'll give you a little bit of. I'll close mine out with a little bit of a lighthearted news. I'm pretty close to an eat the rich type of revolutionary. That I'm really again that big wealth, as they say, but. I got to say, there was a kid from Mount Olive, Mississippi named Braden. He goes to Harvard, and he was on the news the other day getting interviewed by Jake Tapper, and they asked him, about Harvard going online, and they closed the campus, and, there's a lot of kids up there, including him, who are on hardship scholarships, that Harvard gives those out to people who come from low-income families. And they can't afford to just go home. He said, my roommate's from Mumbai. He said he can't afford to just jump on a plane and go home. He doesn't have nowhere to go. I mean, they closed the student housing. And I thought, man, what are they going to do? Well, they waited until it was done to publicize it. But an alumni went down to the student center with a damn American Express card and said, anybody needs a ticket home or a hotel room, come see me. And he shelled it out for every single student that needed it. Now, they didn't publicize it until it was all done with, because they didn't want people showing up and trying to take advantage of him. But an alumni showed up and said, hey, this is a black MasterCard on the black Amex. Put whatever you got. You need a flight? Let's book it. You need a hotel? Let's book it. You need bus fare? Let's book it. I'm going to take care of you. Harvard takes care of his people. And I thought, that's pretty cool. I think that represents what the private sector is capable of in this country. And a libertarian like me, I'd really like to see him step up.
Well, I think
the NBA.
Yeah.
The NBA is going to make the play.
Yeah.
NBA is going to make the call. MLB is going to make the call. Fantastic. Keep doing what you do. Walmart, I'm looking at you. You going to pay checks? You going to pay checks for people to stay home? Let's step up. Let's make this happen.
The sports industry, I think that was very encouraging. Sports industry stepped up first, and now you have a lot of the sports CEOs of these teams and stuff that are covering expenses for the people that are, working in the events, not necessarily the stars.
Who gives a
Right.
I don't care about NBA stars, but what I do care about is a quarter of the average workers in Alabama or in the United States, a quarter of them have no annual leave whatsoever, which means they don't have any sick leave.
Right.
What are they?
That's right.
Let them eat cake. What? How about that?
Exactly.
I mean, how ridiculous.
It's that's what I'm saying. The private sector needs to step up. If you want to live in a libertarian paradise, let's show them how it's done. Step up and take care of your people. They're not. I'm just saying it for the philosophical effect, but it is what it is. I'll close it with that.
All right, so I got one more thing I want to point everybody to, and we'll put a link on our website also. There was an article in the Boston Globe yesterday related to travel bans, coronavirus. It was written. It's a well-written article. It does a good job of explaining what's going on, and it was written by several contributors from the Associated Press, many experts. I mean, there's so many names on here. There are people reporting from Washington State, Rome, New York, London. Like I said, thank God there's still a little bit of press out there where they can all put their heads together and put together a story like this. It is fantastic. You need to go read it. When we get done here, I'm going to have a little audio thrown on here at the end. We are next door to By the Bay Pharmacy here in Daphne, and one of the PharmDs from next door has agreed to come over and give us a little rundown on vocabulary words and what we should be doing to try to protect ourselves as much as we can. And like I said, we're trying to do is stretch this thing out over 18 months so that we don't have a spike and a big run on our hospitals. So everybody stay safe, stay diligent. Hopefully you have all your plans in place. If you don't, talk to your family members. And, if grandma's pushing 80 and smoked for 20 years, maybe taking the grandkids over there to see her Sunday's not a good idea. Just be smart, be safe, and hopefully the coal will continue to flow to Alabama Power Company so the power stays on and all that kind of stuff. I don't imagine we're going to run into that kind of Armageddon or anything, but yeah, a lot of people are going to get sick, and it's going to be trying times. So everybody stay safe. And don't touch your face and wash your hands.
And in Baldwin County, pay particular attention. You know, we have the first Congressional District race as well as the Senate race coming up March 31st. Please pay attention and don't vote for a Catalyst candidate. We need to get rid of this Catalyst group, this good old boy group.
Turkeys, and you know what to say about a high stepper.
That's right. Tell us about that high stepper.
All right, guys. I hope y'all have a good weekend. We're going to try to get this audio up as quick as we can so that it's timely. And you guys be safe. Have a good weekend. First things first, Alabama State Bar Rules of Professional Conduct Rule 7.2e requires the following language in all attorney communications. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by other lawyers. We have a special guest with us today. Why don't you introduce yourself, young lady?
I'm Sarah Seifert. I'm a pharmacist actually next door at By the Bay Pharmacy and Wellness, a local pharmacy here in Daphne on 98. I'm looking forward to serving the community here.
And you guys had a grand opening when? Since I moved in.
Yeah, in January we did our grand opening. We've actually been open since the beginning of November. So just kind of getting our feet wet.
And the interesting thing is this building that we're in used to be a bank, and so you guys used to drive up for your pharmacy needs, right?
We do.
So it's possible for somebody to fill a prescription without having to come inside and spread germs or do whatever.
Absolutely.
And Sarah, you're an Auburn girl.
I am.
Tell us what your degrees are in.
I have a doctor of pharmacy from Auburn. I did their, I guess you call it, satellite program, the first class they did through South Alabama over here in Mobile. So.
War Eagle?
Yeah, right.
All right, so I want to get down to some terms that people may not be familiar with. So tell me what a vector transmission is, or a vector-borne disease.
So first, let's look at your vector-borne disease. They're human illnesses. They're caused by, in this instance, a virus that are transmitted by vectors. So then your vectors are your living organisms that transmit the infectious pathogens either between humans or between humans and animals. So the pathogen is the organism, in this case, a virus, is just something that makes people sick.
And in particular, we're going to use another vocabulary term as we roll on. Pathogen, in this case, is coronavirus.
Correct.
And the resulting condition is COVID-19.
Right.
Okay.
And so, like, your coronavirus is a broader term, a large family of viruses that cause illnesses that they can cause anything from the common cold to more severe diseases. So something we've already seen in the past is SARS was a type of coronavirus.
Okay.
So
but it was extremely lethal, like 60% fatalities. Yeah. So it didn't spread very far. Everybody that got that kind of perished, and it didn't spread. So let's talk about quarantine. So that's not really what's going on, is it? I mean, quarantine is where you take lepers and put them on an island offshore.
Right. I guess we'd call it self-isolating.
Self-isolating.
Just trying to be safe and try to just prevent the spread so we're not overwhelming the healthcare system.
And you and I had a big mathematical debate, which, of course, you won a little while ago. We're talking about percentages, and just so that people understand mortality rates, when we say 1%, that means one person out of 100 that got it died.
Correct. So when they express your mortality rates, they're either giving it to you as a percentage or a decimal. If they give it to you as the percent, like you said, the 1%
you move it over.
1 out of 100. If they give it to you as the decimal, they're going to say your mortality rate is 0.01.
All right, so let's talk about community spread.
So you're getting it from the community. You're the one that didn't go to
Wuhan, China?
Yeah, or South Korea or somewhere. You got it from the community that you were in.
All right, so here is the big discrepancy, and we agree on the terms. We don't agree on this particular pathogen. So there's a difference in the incubation period, and just tell me what the incubation period is.
So an incubation period, just the definition, is you're looking at from the time that you contracted the disease or illness, or you were exposed, basically, to the time the infection appears with its first symptoms.
And in this case, it appears as a fever. That appears to be the first thing, or you're not sure. You're not sure from a clinical standpoint. But it's my understanding that that's the first thing. That's why they're walking around with the little temperature gauges on people's foreheads trying to figure out if they have a fever or not. So there's the incubation period, which is the period between the time you get infected and you show symptoms. And then there's the latent period, which is...
So your latency period is going to be from when you were infected or exposed to when you're contagious.
And I think therein lies the problem. Somebody goes to Wuhan, China, feels perfectly fine, comes back, and that's it. So we were talking about latency periods and incubation periods, and now I want to talk about asymptomatic people spreading the disease is basically the same thing, right?
Well, yeah, because if during that incubation period, the virus is in your body.
Right.
And it is just spreading. It's growing, it's multiplying, and you don't know you have it. So you've got it, but then you're eventually going to spread it.
All right, so your business is called By the Bay Wellness and Pharmacy, right?
Pharmacy and wellness. Close.
Pharmacy and wellness. So that's a component of your business. So it looks to me like healthy people seem to be faring pretty well with the coronavirus. Do you think that's a safe assumption at this point?
Fairly obvious, yeah.
Okay, so most people who are in good shape, under 30, not a whole lot to worry about. I think they said risk factors for anybody over 40. If you smoke, you're overweight or whatever, you might as well be 80.
Yeah. I mean, you're killing your body, so
right.
You know, you're going to have a harder time than anybody else, a normal, healthy individual, to fight it off.
So I've been getting plenty of sleep, walking. I'm taking elderberry.
Okay, good.
Not
Did you come get it from me?
I don't know where Doodle got it from, but I'll make sure that we resupply from.
That's what I thought.
Well, yeah, next door. Why not?
And some vitamin C. I have the liposomal vitamin C, which is better absorbed.
Well,
high dose.
You got to understand, I'm like a little kid. I got to have my Flintstones chewables.
No.
I can't chew up those.
Okay.
They taste nasty.
Well,
but,
good luck with that.
Okay. Well, I put for the coronavirus, I will swallow or chew anything. How about that?
Okay.
It seems that kind of like chicken pox and some other diseases, they don't seem to affect younger people as much as older people. And, you know, we see that in chicken pox and the related manifestation of that virus in shingles with old people. I mean, I hear that's damn near torturous.
It is.
And of course, you had chicken pox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So did I. Nick, chicken pox. Yeah. Everybody seems to survive that pretty well. So keep yourself healthy. One of the things I suffer from is seasonal allergies, and it is 80 degrees today, and the pollen is blowing all over the place like it's May.
Yep.
So, and according to some of the information that I've read, warmer weather typically is the harbinger of the end of flu season. Do you imagine that's the case here, or is that just anecdotal?
I mean, I'm hoping so. I mean, just in theory, because it's kind of presenting similar to a flu type. You know what I mean? Like it's a
right.
The symptoms and all that is kind of a similar. So, I mean, we can hope, that it's gonna.
So one of the things I talked about in the podcast was the fact that most everybody's probably going to get this thing, statistically a third of us. And we don't all want to get it at the same time.
Right.
We want to stretch this disease out so that we don't overwhelm our healthcare system.
Yes.
So do you have any idea how many ICU beds we have in Baldwin County, or how many respirators we have?
No.
But probably not enough.
Not
if everybody got sick at one time, obviously not.
No.
Okay, so while we were doing our podcast today, President Trump comes on after Reigns berates him and says he's done nothing and the worst president in the history of the world because of the way he's handled this coronavirus outbreak. He has ordered all of the state EMAs to open immediately. He has authorized $50 billion to combat coronavirus or COVID-19. And, you're an Auburn girl. You probably got a little bit squirreled away. The stock market closed up over 9% today. So we had 2 days of, 20% overall was the fall. So we clawed back 9%. One of the things I heard was that we're going to do drive-up testing sites, so you won't actually have to go to the dock in the box, which I don't know how.
Waiting room.
Right, and nowhere to, physical contact with people, especially healthcare workers. I mean, my goodness, if they've been exposed 100 times, what's the chances they aren't symptomatic?
Well, I'm not shutting down.
Well, yeah.
I got to go to work. Nurses have to go to work. Doctors got to go to work.
So I have, and just so anybody out there listening who may care about this, I have a pretty major trial coming up Monday. It's in a state with a couple $1 million in it. We probably have 6 or 7 witnesses that are supposed to be in Judge Alvis's courtroom in Shelby County on Monday morning. I just got an email saying that that it's been continued for public safety purposes. Wow. And moved to her docket next week, which I don't think is going to happen next week either. And I expect to continue to get orders from different judges about cases next week. I have 3 set for next week, and I don't expect any of them to go off. Of course, for me, it's good because one of the cases is in Shelby County, and on Wednesday I was supposed to be in Dothan. So I'd much rather, hang around here and draft wills and that kind of stuff. Any more advice for us?
Wash your hands. Cough into a tissue. Don't go.
And the golden rule. One of the things Reigns is worried about, so this is going to devolve into the LA riots of '92. I don't think that. I think our great grandparents definitely went through this. Follow the golden rule. You wouldn't want somebody sneezing on you,
Right.
or watching somebody wipe their nose and then touch everything on the elevator, all the elevator buttons. And don't be a jackass. Don't beat somebody up over a roll of toilet paper or the last thing of Kleenex. Maybe paper, scissors, rock. That's what we do at my house. I'm the master. Can you imagine dispute resolution with me? It's not pretty.
No.
So paper, scissors, rock is the best way to go, or flipping a coin. Anything else? So what's typical? I know we had a really bad 2019 flu season. Are we seeing the same flu that we saw in December?
I think it's kind of changed.
Is it tapering off, or?
Yeah, it's kind of slowing. It's slowing down now.
Okay, and for that, y'all give Tamiflu?
Yeah, Tamiflu or Zofluza.
Okay.
So we have 2 antivirals, but
is that protocol for this yet, or do y'all have any direction?
No.
Don't know. Okay. Well, by the Bay Pharmacy and Wellness, or Wellness and Pharmacy and Wellness.
Pharmacy and Wellness.
And you do have a drive up.
And
have you considered doing any kind of delivery? I mean, if it gets to that point.
Yeah, I mean, if it's something that I need to do, we'll figure out a way to do it.
And you have a business partner?
I do.
And what's her name?
Christina Bond.
And she's a pharmacist.
She's a pharmacist as well.
Also?
We're both local here. I was born and raised. She's been a transplant for the last probably 15 years. So.
Right. And you guys have other items besides what you would find at the pharmacy.
Yeah, we've got a good selection of your normal over-the-counter stuff. I've got a good CBD line, a good nutritional supplement line, and right now, like I said earlier, I've got elderberry and some good vitamin C.
See, that's the second. I didn't know you could eat an elderberry. I thought they killed you, but apparently you can put them in a pill and they're real good for you.
Yeah.
Anything else I can do besides lose a bunch, except start running now and don't stop till this is over with?
Right.
Anything
Stay
else?
healthy. Just try to don't breathe on anybody.
There you go. All right. Well, this has been a short. We hope you like it, and we'll try to keep you informed like this in the future.